Right now, more than half of people on income-driven repayment plans have a higher loan balance than the day they started repaying it. But it's not because they stopped paying. It's simply because the math behind these types of loans was never designed to let them win. If you got student loans, you've probably heard the pitch already. Income-driven repayment, or IDR, sounds like the government is finally showing up with something reasonable. Instead of a fixed payment you can't afford, you pay a percentage of your income, ranging from 10 to 15% depending on the plan. Lower payment, less stress, and after 20 to 25 years, whatever's left gets forgiven. It sounds like relief, and it's marketed as relief. Most of the coverage you'll see treats it exactly that way, a kinder, more humane alternative to the old system. Here's the thing about that pitch. It's true technically in the same way it's technically true that a treadmill will get you somewhere. You're moving, you're doing everything right. And research on these plans has found that a large share of borrowers see their balance grow, not shrink, for years after they start paying, sometimes for over a decade. But here's what's actually happening underneath that pitch. Your IDR payment isn't calculated based on your loan balance. It's not calculated based on your interest rate either. It's calculated almost entirely off your income, which means it's completely possible, common actually, for your required monthly payment to be smaller than the interest accruing on your loan every single month. You pay on time, every time, and your balance still grows. That's called negative amortization, and it's not a glitch. It's the system working as designed. We'll get to the number your servicer never has to put on your statement, the one number that would actually tell you the truth about where you stand. So let's get into the actual math, because this is where it stops being abstract and starts being your bank account. Say your loan has a 6% interest rate and a $40,000 balance. That's about $200 a month in interest alone before a single dollar touches the principal. Now, say your income qualifies you for a $120 monthly payment under an IDR plan. You're paying $120. The interest is $200. Every month, roughly $80 gets added to your balance, not subtracted. And that's because the payment formula was built around what you can afford right now, with zero connection to what the loan is actually doing behind the scenes. And here's the real thing. Well, this isn't a hypothetical. Research comparing repayment cohorts found that borrowers who started repaying in 2001 had paid down more than half their original balance within 5 years. Borrowers who started in 2015 on the same 5-year mark still owed roughly 80% of what they borrowed. Same country, same loan system, 14 years apart, and the slowdown tracks almost exactly with the rise of income-driven plans. It's not that people got worse at paying loans, it's that the plans got better at making balances stick around. And the effect isn't evenly spread either. One widely cited analysis found that within 12 years of entering college, over half of Black borrowers who hadn't consolidated their loans owed more than they originally borrowed, more than double the share of white borrowers in the same position. Negative amortization doesn't just delay payoff, it compounds existing gaps. Which brings us to the part nobody puts on the brochure, who actually gets paid while your balance sits there growing. Loan servicers, the companies that manage your account, send your statements, answer your calls, don't get paid based on whether your balance ever goes down. They get paid largely for servicing the account itself, fees tied to loan volume and account activity, not outcomes. Translated out of corporate speak, that means a servicer has no financial incentive to help you pay off your loan faster. A loan that lingers for 25 years generates a longer relationship than one that gets paid off in 10. And that's the number that never makes it onto your monthly statement, your true amortization trajectory, whether your specific payment is actually reducing your debt or just maintaining it. Nobody's required to show you that number. You have to calculate it yourself, and almost nobody does. Here's the part that makes this land different from a simple bad deal story. This isn't about one bad company. It's about a structure, origination, servicing, forgiveness rules, where nearly every party gets paid regardless of whether the loan ever resolves. Think of it like a gym membership that renews itself automatically, forever, and still charges you a maintenance fee in the months you show up and do everything right. You're not being punished for doing it wrong. You're paying rent on a debt that was never built to close on your schedule. And this isn't a settled fight from a few years ago. It's live right now, and the timeline is almost absurd once you lay it out. In 2023, the SAVE plan launched as the most generous IDR plan yet. Lower payments, a much larger exemption before interest could even start piling up. Within a year, Republican-led states sued, and in July of 2024, a federal appeals court blocked the plan entirely, freezing roughly 7 million borrowers into an interest-free forbearance. That forbearance dragged on for nearly 2 years. In February 2025, the same appeals court upheld the block and went further, calling the entire legal basis for income contingent forgiveness into question. In August 2025, the government started charging interest again on those frozen loans. In December 2025, the parties signed a settlement to formally wind Save down for good. And in March of 2026, just a few months ago, a federal appeals court made it official. Save is dead. 7 million people spent 2 years in limbo, not paying, not progressing toward forgiveness, watching a plan they'd enrolled in get argued over in courtrooms they had no seat in. And here's the uncomfortable thing. The replacement plan, called RAP, just launched on July 1st of this year, technically fixing the exact mechanism this video is about. Payments under RAP can't fall behind interest anymore. Unpaid interest gets waived instead of piling onto your balance, which sounds like an admission. It sounds like even the people who build these plans know negative amortization was never a bug. It was load-bearing. And RAP still stretches repayment out to 30 years, still calculates your payment off your income, not your balance. The specific glitch got patched. The underlying model, pay what feels affordable, worry about the total later, didn't change. Because this mechanism never stayed contained to student loans. The same logic, a minimum payment size to feel affordable while barely touching the actual debt, is exactly how credit card minimum payments work. It shows up in some medical debt payment plans, some buy now, pay later structures. Once you can see negative amortization clearly in one place, you start noticing it's the default setting of an entire category of consumer debt, not an exception carved out for student. Which means the real skill here isn't finding the newest repayment plan, it's knowing how to check for your own loan whether your payment actually covers your interest, because your servicer will never volunteer that answer, and the monthly statement was never built to make it obvious. Your balance can look stable, even drop by a few dollars some months, while the structure underneath stays exactly what it's always been. So back to that number from the start, into more than half of IDR borrowers owing more than they started with, despite paying on time, every time. That's not a story about borrowers making bad choices. That's the predictable output of a payment formula that was never actually pointed at your balance in the first place. And that's the uncomfortable truth about income-driven repayment. It was never broken. It's just never been aimed at getting you out. It's aimed at making the monthly number bearable. And those were never the same thing. If you want the real version of how your loan actually works, not the version the statement is designed to give you, that's what this channel is for. Subscribe if you're tired of getting the simplified version of your own finances.